if they can join in. Premal, where are you located?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. So maybe you went to some Florida.
No, like everybody else, I'm mostly working from home, but my son goes to school and he does have real in-person school, which made it hard to go anywhere.
Since I got 2 kids, and now since April, New York New York City is opening all the school, no more hybrid. So basically, they did the 50-50 alteration, right? We distributed. But since April something, they're gonna go full blown in, not even 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, so we can't go very far. For those joining, I know it's 3 o'clock. I think we're gonna just wait for a couple more minutes for others to join. Hi, everyone. We're waiting for maybe a minute more and we'll get started. Overall, we shouldn't take more than 20 minutes of your time, so we will finish on time. Okay, why don't we get started? I think Ondrej is coming right back, I assume. But thank you everyone for joining. Most of you should know me. I've met most of you in some capacity, but for those who don't, Premal Parikh, one of the co-founders of Aquarian, formerly known as Isha. So as part of a rebranding, we wanted to try a new type of event, which this is. So this is the first time we're doing an invite-only event. And really what we wanted to do was have a more personal dialogue with a partner of ours and talk about what they specialize in. So quick background for those who don't know Aquarian, we are a cybersecurity firm which helps our clients from strategy, compliance, program management through security testing. And so the reason we thought LIFARS was a good partner for us is really, yes, we do have some overlap, but they also cover things that we don't around incident management, incident response. So, thought this would be a good dialogue to get folks to understand that better, understand how the partnership works, and think about incident response more than just a piece of paper that they look at once a year. So, Ondrej, you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Premal, thank you really for having me today. My background is in the cyber military intelligence operations. We handle multiple cases parallel to Department of Justice. Just the firm had 6 federal indictments with the FBI. I was part of the FBI Training Academy. Also served in some of the specialized forces here in the US. And we've been performing various digital forensics as a firm, primarily in the United States, some Canada, some Latin America. We have operations in Europe, and we have also office in India. So really thank you, Premal, for having me here today.
Cool. Do you want to just quickly talk about LIFARS a bit more, or should I go right into it?
Yeah, so we have 5 divisions. I feel very privileged that we have really these 5-6 people that have a PhD in computer forensics. So we also develop a product. For example, we develop something called cyber vaccines that enrich the EDR. We'll talk about it later. The product suite. Mainly on a solution side, we provide digital forensic incident response. We have an offensive division that conducts red teaming and penetration testing. We have managed defense, which is basically 24/7 of escalation from MSSPs. So anyone that you have, that, for example, that 11-month level 2, we are the escalation point, meaning that we pick up at that BFIR component of that engagement, not the full MSSP. Cool. And then we also have some advisory practice.
Cool, thank you. So, the first question that happens, and, I'll give you where our clients come from, is in a lot of cases, they're coming from a compliance perspective, right? So they need incident response, they need DR, they need the BCP as documents. But, frankly, in a lot of cases, they're documents. So when should a firm engage with a company like LIFARS? What have you seen from your perspective?
Anytime you have suspect that someone intruded your network, or potentially your data may have been compromised in a breach of that, let's say if it's a HIPAA, someone actually saw the records, or someone actually exfiltrated data from the network, then generally it would be required to put a proper closure and from a legal point of view to that type of incident. And an incident needs to be examined by someone who is an independent, and most likely will include LIFARS or someone in the reach of that examination process. This is very common because in US laws and common laws, you have to understand who is a victim and also how those victim has to be protected or a duty to guard the data that have been, let's say, stolen. So if it's a social security number, if it's a health record, whatever that is, there are statutes in every state from just data breach point of view, but also statutes from data governance that actually govern the data and the compliance.
Okay. And do most of your clients engage you when they get breached or before? Is there any kind of an engagement before, or is it always, hey, now that an incident's occurred, who do I call?
I would say it's 50-50 now. We have many that do what they call incident response retainer. So basically they proactively believe that they're gonna get something. And by the way, everyone's gonna get something. You're gonna have a cyber call, you're gonna have cyber cancer. You just don't know what's gonna hit you. It's just we live in an era where someone's gonna get, you're gonna be probed from the internet. It's just the way it is. So more and more, I would say last year, 50-50, or maybe even 60% are actually proactive clients on incident response, incident retainer side, where they going ahead with contractually binding what the terms would be for such an engagement. They want to have understanding, like, if this happens to me tomorrow, like how I'm going to work with you and everyone else in the portfolio that I need to work with. And I want to have it contractually bind it as a language. The second piece of that usually is that they define some scope of a work for in a year. Primarily is something called IR readiness assessment. They really want to know, almost like that annual check with the doctor, how ready I am to actually deal with any of cyber incidents. And how far could I really go? Like on my own, how far you will go, how far if something else actually happens.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, the breaches we've been involved in, and as you said, Andre, the aim always is not to get breached of any sort, but reality is you have to be ready for it. It's like insurance, right? You need it, and the only time you start worrying about insurance is when something happens, and then you go, "Why is my deductible so high? I should have kept a lower deductible." But it's similar in that sense, right? So what I've seen working with you guys is having an SLA in place helps, right? You don't want to be negotiating MSAs and SOWs when you have a ransomware or a breach incident occurring, and having that relationship, whether it's formal or even informal, just saying, hey, who am I going to go to, what is that company, always helps. So walk me through an example, right? So what happens, say you get a ransomware attack, right? What would you do first, second, and third if you were involved?
Generally, victims have few objectives. So I would say number one objective is, what is that weakness, that vulnerability that threat actor was able to exploit? Is it a website? Did they drop PowerShell? Did they use some spare phishing? How did they really get on the network? Second one, usually objective is, like, how do you really contain, isolate, and eradicate this threat actor from my network? Yes, I understand I have encrypted systems, but what is the meaning to me is, where are these zombies hidden? Usually call them command and controls that threat actor actually puts in, like, let's say in a riot scenario, and they wake them up in a week, and they maybe run something on a computer and connects back threat actor, the bad guys, to your network. Usually the next objective is to understand, was anything exfiltrated? Employee data, clients data, emails of the CEO, but what really this threat actor actually took before they deploy ransomware. I would say we have really over now a deadly dozen of ransomware groups that their standard modus operandi is actually exfiltrate data, meaning that they want to get double paid. They want to get paid on ransomware, but they only want to pay on the data they stole. They're not going to publish them publicly or auction them to someone who literally sell to a competitor said that someone else would be having. Important piece is also remediation. And that's a parallel stream to the forensic. So these are what I would call forensic objectives, digital forensic and incident response objectives. The remediation piece is really help these clients to get back on track. Okay, so how we can help them to set up a clean network. How can we get them tools to scan the systems, ensuring they're clean before they put them on a network? How can they properly isolate, meaning that this pandemic is not spreading back into the clean network from the unclean environment? If that's the mode they need to operate. And probably the last one is help them to deal with any of the regulatory requests that do come on the road, and they have to show, okay, show me the forensic report, show me what you did, show me who are the victims, show me what really happened here, and what was the root cause analysis. And also, sometimes regulators looking for what I would call like a gross negligence, the oversight of the company, where they could really say, well, you did X, Y, Z, and that's why everything went wrong. Right? So like a simple punishment bullet. And we had a few of those. For example, we had a company here called Affinity Health Plan, got a 40 million fine from FTC for mismanaging and being breached on healthcare records. Right? So, and that was in the news. I'm not telling you anything new. It was one that actually sold a copier machine with all the clients' data to some other third parties, and it's up here all around the internet. It created, by the way, a huge amount of fraud on the Medicaid and Medicare side, because these are subsidized plans. And basically, all these drugs started flying to the wrong direction.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. I think you hit on a couple of things, right? One is the number of different participants, right? So one is the company that got affected, right? So company X, in some cases, they might have an MSP involved, LIFARs if it's the incident response, the lawyers, the regulators. And so trying to put all those together becomes part of the problem and the challenge, right? It's how does everybody talking to each other and making sure we have the right steps in program management, if you will, to solve the problem. Talk me through, most of the folks we have on the call today are either in financial technologies, the financial industry, or in health, right? And as you can imagine, both are regulated, both get a significant number of attacks. Any specific example of, without names, of course, of something you've done in one of those industries and how that worked?
Financial, we had various what they call a business email compromise threat actors very much likely go after accounting systems or payroll systems or systems that pay contractors. And usually financial institutions, especially if they handle their own internal something else for in virtue of their contract, how it's being paid, like how they move some funds laterally. So that's always interest with threat actors. Or if they trade, to get into portfolio and just dump the stock like a penny stock, purchase penny stocks. So it might not be a big damage, but let's say it's a, I don't know, $150,000 transaction, but it increases the value of the stock. And if they have a stock option, they exercise the stock option. They're usually in the countries where you can get into it, and they drop the stock and it goes to toilet, right? So nothing happens, but they get financial. So threat actor really likes financial institutions because usually money has flow, and if they can intercept that money flow, then they can benefit financially from the transactions. In healthcare, we had a very interesting case last year in December where a medical data center provider has been compromised. It's a very well known. Medical providers usually host data at a PHI, HIPAA compliant kind of data centers. But there are few of these providers who advertise very heavily on compliant. So one of these providers gets compromised, and over 1,000 companies gets compromised too with this provider, right? So it goes back to the supply chain kind of attack. The threat actors are not necessarily looking at you, just you, but what you don't know is that when you're hosting data somewhere, you might get compromised. And now, because of the third party, now you have a duty to react to it and run your maybe own forensic investigation. They brought the data center brought their own forensic firm, which ended up not go very well because threat actor went from 10% of the encrypted data center to 90% in the month of encrypted data center, meaning that they were not able to fight a threat actor. Right? It's almost like you can't fight a pandemic, right? Like you can't fight it, which creates its own issue now, right? Because now your customers are affected, and now you can't do the business for 2 months. What are you going to do if your provider is out for 2 months? He can't find a pandemic. Like, how do you really operate? What's your business continuity plan? And not forget it that you can all the liability actions, right? Now, how you're going to tap into insurance of the provider, or like some companies literally said, if you can't get this right now, we have to move right away from this provider, start our own something somewhere else because we'll be out of the business.
Yeah, it's affecting more than just that one company, right? You've impacted a ton of other companies as well.
Yeah, that's an example of how sometimes things can go horribly wrong. I'm not saying it's always like that, but sometimes we do see things that do go horribly wrong.
Okay, and I want to stay on time, but I have a few more questions if you don't mind, Ondrej. One is negotiating with the states a ransomware attack, negotiating with that threat actor, right? Is that something you guys do? How does that work? Or is that not in your purview?
We've done multiple negotiations. I think the one that I consider probably one of the very successful was maybe from a $3.5 million to $600,000, less than in 8 hours. But you do need to have an angle in negotiation. You just can't go and say a few words. You have to be always respectful. You have to almost like surrender the outcome to threat actors. There is, I would say, significant tactic that you have to use to close this negotiation quickly. Because if the threat actor, if they know who you are, unlikely you're gonna close it. If for whatever reason they know who you are, but they start believing your story, you still have a chance. But it's that very limited window, I would say, that you have to close a negotiation. And most of the threat actors right now, because if they're not in rush, they're going to negotiate with you over 2-3 days. That means you're not in good position to negotiate. They only write 1 or 2 emails. It's only with the email. There's no chat anymore. That's tougher. It's tougher definitely to negotiate. The good news is you can always negotiate with them and explain in your rationale behind it why you would like to pay less and more for the ransom. At the same page, when you engage with them, you need to be mindful that if they have the backdoor to your network, right now you have to really get focused to get rid of them from your system. It's just like they can't stay, right? Because whatever you negotiated might be gone tomorrow, and they might come and correct you. But it didn't happen, and we've seen that. It's not usually from the same threat actor, but like we have friends and partners. They have friends and partners. They'll sell that victim as a food ticket to someone else. And literally, they're going to tell them how to exploit it, meaning that the company did not plug that SharePoint online hall. They're going to tell the other company there's a SharePoint online hall. It's still in there. They don't know how we got in, by the way. They've never done root code analysis. They've never done any forensic. Look, if you pay us XYZ money, just drop the SharePoint again, exploit it, drop the web shell, get in, encrypt them. I think they need to learn a lesson.
Yeah, and I think what you're hitting at is important, right? Even if you're going to negotiate, you still need to know how did the incident occur, how did they get breached, plug that hole, make sure they're still not in your system, because even if you negotiate and that works well and the negotiations end, nothing's stopping them from coming back unless you've done the right next steps, if you will. Along that lines, for those that haven't negotiated a threat actor, if you do negotiate, payment is usually Bitcoin or something like that, right? Nowadays.
That is correct.
And you do that whole the wallet and everything else goes through you? Or you?
We have a account on exchange that actually excluded from AML on an exchange called Bitstamp, and actually says pay criminals, for ransomware extortion. So we actually did disclose that we're going to be purchasing these Bitcoins for it. The one area that we have challenge is OFAC type of entities. So if the threat actor is listed by OFAC, by Office of Asset Control, then a license needs to be granted. The company basically is responsible for sanction and penalties under OFAC rules.
Okay.
So that's something that involves lawyers. So let's say you involved with the Evil Corp is listed, and Evil Corp wallets are listed in OFAC. So that might create some challenges to make a payment in terms of that. The payment can be made, but the Office of OFAC can actually issue a penalty for the payment to the company, right? So there's some waiver of liability for us in those instances where company needs to pay, but understands the sanctions that can come from OFAC. And the Bitcoin basically purchase them commercially, right, on the Bitstamp exchange. Then we pivot them into new temporary wallet. From the new temporary wallet, we basically pay the threat actor, and they usually honor the promise that they did.
Those are always the question, right? If I pay you, will they really give you the data back?
But at the back end, usually they also may resell your data. They may do things like they're criminals. They're honorable what they told you they're going to do, but they're not honorable to what they didn't tell you they're not going to do, right? So if they're going to go and resell your data on 3 private options, which we'll do probably because it's extra money, they're going to do it. It's just you can't assume that that's not going to happen. Reality is, once they have your data, if they can monetize 80 times, they're going to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know I'm getting told we're out of time nearly, but I'm going to ask one more, and hopefully people can stay for a minute more and they'll recap. Lots of tools out there, right? If you look at security right now, frankly, it's exploding. There are more tools coming out every day. All of them will say they'll solve your problem. What set of tools, right? Whether it's WAF, whether it's SIMs, MDRs, endpoints, name it. What set of tools do you say, okay, make sure this is at least in place, right? From a security perspective, from an incident risk perspective. Anything like that? Any advice there?
So I would say that, yes, there's a lot of security tools and a lot of security vendors, and everyone's going to tell you they're going to stop this madness. And you can have 40 of them. Even the best companies you've seen, they have been compromised at 40 different tools. I would say it's probably the utmost thing that every enterprise needs to do is reinforce the endpoints. The threat actor needs to live on some system that you actually have. And the EDR solution, XDR solutions are really way to address it. They're not all the same. Don't think they are. There are maybe 4 vendors. In our experience, Microsoft ATP, for example, CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, Carbon Black are at that EDR space. Don't also confuse them with antivirus. They're not your antivirus, okay? A little bit different kind of tools. They're looking more for injections, more for behavior, more for something lateral movement. They're also not perfect, right? They're not, none of them is perfect. And then you should pick something. I know, for example, a lot of clients pick Microsoft because it's embedded in their operating system. They can really work with easy licensing. Very large enterprises, maybe like CrowdStrike, because it also focuses on nation state. Some companies like SentinelOne because it's easy to use in ransomware. Carbon Black is kind of a universal tool for companies like us to actually do incident response, also do defense at the same time. But so it's a multi-modular aspect. So each of them is also different from all those four that I said. Each of them is actually different how you operate. But also keep in mind that EDR2 needs an operator. It's almost like the surgery that you're doing, and you need someone, you need a doctor, right? It's good to have a nurse, but you do need to have a doctor for those tools.
Someone to manage it. So, I'm out of time. I thought this was useful, at least to me. Hopefully, I'm going to get feedback from the people attending. But, it's the first time we're doing this. So in this manner, so would love to get feedback from those attending offline, of course. Just to recap, we are doing individual sessions. So LIFARS, Aquarian together are going to sit down with each one of you, talk about incident response in more detail. And so those meetings are being set up if you already don't have a schedule. And so we'll follow up with those with any specific questions you might have. But thank you for your time, Ondrej. Any last words? Otherwise, we'll recap this thing. Cool.
As you say, the LIFARS, life is a bridge, and the next one will be just around the corner.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time, everyone. We'll follow up soon. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.